Grandma Sheri. I've been looking for a quiet spot to sit and talk to you and be able to enjoy this lovely weather. It's a warm day for November in Illinois, and I'm determined to enjoy it. I thought today we would just talk. I was hoping to show you some things you could make with elderberry jelly or raspberries, because I showed you how I cultivated and harvested them last week. Those are both legacy pieces for me. My parents, I grew up on a farm, and there was this big raspberry bramble, and my mom made the best raspberry coffee cake, which I have yet to duplicate. But I had some interruption in my time. My family has gotten COVID, and we're all doing well. But I just felt it was best if I didn't try to cook and can something to eat later. If indeed we were infected. I haven't gotten my results back, but I just felt it would be better to be safe. And so it brings me to this conversation that I've been thinking about with all of you for a long time, because I've been talking about legacy and talking about all these things from my childhood or ancestors that I want to bring forward, or the things that I've been creating to pass down. And I understand that there can be a difficulty with that if you don't know a lot of your ancestry, or if there's some difficulties with that past and difficulty wanting to embrace that because of maybe what occurred in the past. So today we're just going to talk about difficulties and hardships and interruptions, and when the things that you expect don't really come to pass the way you expect it to. And I'm again going to turn to my ancestors. I'm showing you a picture of this rock pile that was out on the family farm in South Dakota. And that's one of many rock piles. And that's one of the smaller ones. There's one that is just huge, but it was a little more difficult to get to. So this was the one that I got to photograph. Anyway, the reason that rock pile is there is because the soil was really rocky. There's a lot of rocks and boulders. Sure, it has something to do with how, the last glacial period affected the land. I don't know all the science behind it, but I do know that to get that land to a place where it could be cultivated was hard work. When my great-grandparents were getting that land ready to be able to grow things, harvest, sustain some life in it, this is in the early 1900s. There wasn't just throw it in the back of a pickup truck and drive it to where they'd started a pile. It was a lot more work. So I'm gonna turn now to my great-grandmother's history I've told you about before. I'm going to share this more later, but this is just her story of coming to South Dakota, and it looks like that was in the late 1880s. In May of 1886, the family from Cochran family of Springfield, New York, landed in Ipswich, South Dakota. And she says this: my parents, the Levitts, had an ox team. Their names were Buck and Bright. We had no wagon, but a stone boat on which they turned the wash tub upside down, and Mama and I sat on that while Papa stood up and drove and tried to miss the rocks as we skimmed over the prairie. We also always had a barrel on the stone boat, so if we were near a well, we could take some precious water home with us. And I asked my dad about that, because that image in my mind was that it was a boat. There was an upside down boat, and he said no, it was a flat, it was probably wood. I don't know where the stone came, if the stone was because they were like literally gliding over stones. But it was pulled by a team, and it just kind of dragged them along, and they just sat there. He stood, they sat, and it had to have been a really unpleasant way to travel, and they traveled great lengths that way. But I wonder, when my great-grandmother or my great-grandfather, as they were getting that land ready, as they would come and come to another one of those boulders or rocks, what their response, what their reaction was. You know, did they want to kick it? Did they want to curse it? And maybe there were times that they felt that way. Or did they just look at it as something that needed to be moved so that they could plant something, so that something could grow, so that they could have a harvest? Was it just seen as one of the things that had to happen? Just one of those pieces in this process. You know, our ancestors have gone through hard times and hard work to get us here. And we're no different. We're going through hard times. We have hard situations. I might not literally have to be moving rocks, moving boulders, as my ancestors did. But I tell you that in the hard times that we're dealing with and the difficulties that we're dealing with, I hold on to that picture of those rocks, because those rocks show me how important the hard work is. I hope the next time you encounter a rock in your soil, in your journey as you're trying to get to that expected end, it might not be putting in a field, it might not be putting in a crop, but it's something that's going to cause something to grow so that there would be a harvest, whatever that is for your life. I hope that when you get to that point, that you don't curse the rock, you don't kick the rock, but you find a way to move it. You find a way to move it. And that you're going to have your own pile of challenges that were moved out of the way, as that picture is to me. I see that picture, and there's this big pile of challenges that people worked hard to move so they could create something for themselves and for those to come. And the beautiful thing about that picture is, even though these are all discarded things that were just in the way, there's even growth around it. There's growth. If you look at it hard enough, it's probably some kind of sunflower-ish thing. It is not a sunflower, but there's this yellow blossom plant growing right next to it. And I hope you can see in your life, somewhere, that even though there's a pile of challenges that you've moved, you could look at that and say, oh, that was terrible stuff. But I hope when you look at it, you see that little blossom still growing beside it, that there can be beauty in the hardship. There can be beauty in the challenges. I hope you get to see that. So my week isn't going the way I thought it would go, which is fine. It's totally fine. We are well, and I pray for those who aren't well and who have struggled much more than we have. But I hope this is a blessing to you. I hope you find peace in this, and I hope that you see those challenges as something that is a part of your process, not to curse or kick, but to find a way to move it. You know, and they had to have been kind of ingenious at times, because some of those boulders were really large. So they probably had to come up with some pulley, lever, I'm not sure what all they had to do, but they had to think hard. How am I gonna get around this? How am I gonna move this? And I hope you're blessed with that kind of thinking. How am I gonna move it? And it may not be for you to move, it may be for you to endure. It may be for you to get help to move it, because I'm sure they didn't do this all by themselves. But I hope you find that blessing. I hope you find that way to think it through. All right, this is Grandma Sheri. Have a great week. I hope to be crafting and cooking and creative with you again soon. Bye.